Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Boderrry Admiral GMT reference A12T-01. This watch is available from Boderrry.com for $169 which is €152. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the specifications of the piece. So the watch comes in this black plastic watch box, which is in the style of a shipping container. Very nicely detailed, and Boderrry deserve credit here for coming up with an original design of watch box. Rather than just using the less expensive default option of a cardboard watch box, this plastic shipping container style watch box is interesting and it's very well made. So it has a drawer, which is a snug fit to the sleeve, and inside there is a protective foam panel you remove. And inside the base there's a foam panel which is fully upholstered with black velour fabric to a good standard. It has a cutout in the centre, and that houses this padded pillow cushion, which is also black velour fabric upholstered to a good standard. So the padded pillow cushion is a snug fit in the cutout of the foam base, and this prevents the watch moving around inside the drawer, and the drawer is a snug fit inside the sleeve of the plastic shipping container style watch box. So I like it. I think it's something different and it's good presentation and it adds interest to the piece. So with regards to the items that come with the watch, this is the owner's instruction manual, clear concise diagrams. The instructions are in English and it details the operation of the movement used, which is the Seiko Caliber NH34A automatic. It also details the terms and conditions of the 2-year international warranty. This is the plastic warranty card and it has the unique serial number of the piece, and on the reverse there's space to fill in the dealer's stamp, the name, city and reference number of the piece, as well as the purchase date. But when you purchase the watch from Boderrry.com, this does not come filled in, but I'm pleased to report the 2-year warranty is activated from the date of purchase. I want to give due credit to Boderrry here, because often low-tier Chinese brands at this price point of €152 only cover their watches with 12 months of international warranty, so to get 2 years of warranty is very good. And lastly, one also gets this 1.2mm flathead jeweler's screwdriver, hardened tool steel tip. The body is made from mild steel, which is nickel plated to a good standard, knurled shank, and we have a rotating knurled head. So this does suffice in resizing the Jubilee style bracelet links, which have 1.2mm screw pins. So good to get that included. So good presentation and also good items with the watch. So with regards to the specifications of the piece, we have a 40mm case diameter. We have a lug-to-lug measurement of 49.2mm, a thickness of 13.1mm, and a lug width of 20mm. The Jubilee style bracelet is made from titanium and it tapers from 20mm at the lugs down to 18mm at the 2-button push clasp. Now, I think Boderrry have made a mistake here. They should have used the industry standard. I often refer to it as perfection personified because it is the perfect taper. 20 to 16 would look better on a 40mm head of the piece. 20 to 18 does add a lot of meat on the bracelet, and the problem is it makes the Jubilee style bracelet look straight and parallel rather than being tapered, and a 20 to 16 would give it a better taper. It would be more aesthetically pleasing, and it would also reduce the heft and enhance the comfort level and feel good factor. But this is subjective. Some collectors might like the straight parallel look of a 20 to 18 taper on the Jubilee style bracelet. So the bracelet is made from solid titanium, but the clasp is made from 316L grade stainless steel. The 2-button push clasp is signed to high standard with the Boderrry logo engraved with sharp high definition engraving. 2-button push triggers are correctly proportioned and they are brushed satin finished, and they're sprung loaded with nice firm spring loaded action. We have a flat sapphire crystal with clear AR coating on the underside, and the clear anti-reflective coating does an excellent job of reducing the glare and the highly reflective nature of the flat sapphire crystal. Matte black dial, and the white snowflake indices, which are fully lumed with C3 Superlume Nova, are Tudor snowflake style as per a Black Bay, Pelagos or Black Bay 58. They're correctly proportioned. The snowflake indices are clearly legible. I like the white tone. There's a good colour tone match between the C3 printed snowflake indices and the arrow handset. The white looks good. It doesn't look more cream on the hands or the dial. It has the same white tone, and also the contrasting red GMT hour hand contrasts very well, and it has a triangle arrowhead tip to it. The white second hand also contrasts very well, and it has a snowflake Lume pip on it. And the white minute ticks on the chapter ring are crisp and high definition. They're not too thick and blurry, so the quality of the printing on the dial is very sharp. The Boderrry text logo contrasts very well. The white font is nice and sharp. It's fine, it's not too thick. And we have just the right amount of information, because at the 6 o'clock position we have GMT in contrasting red, automatic in white, and then 200M 660 feet. Just 3 lines of text, so the dial looks balanced. It's not over branded with unnecessary text or specification. Often low-tier Chinese brands have a tendency to make the dial too cluttered, too busy, with too much branding, too much text and specification. 3 lines of text is good, and just the Boderrry text logo at the 12 o'clock position. The dial looks balanced. Now, they've cited the date complication at the 4 o'clock position, and that's good because we have good symmetry between the 9, 6 and 3 indices on the dial, the large rectangles as per a Tudor snowflake dial layouts, and the legibility is good. The date window is correctly proportioned, and the alignments of the black Arabic numerals, both the singles and the doubles on the white date wheel, are correct. The font of the black Arabic numerals on the date wheel is sharp, it's high definition, the font isn't too thick and blurry, so the legibility is very good. Flat sapphire crystal is very good because it's got a slight bevel which projects above the top edge of the aluminium bezel insert. Now, one could be critical of this. Subjectively, one could say the aluminium bezel insert is a production cost cutting measure in order to maximise profit margin per piece. The other negative of using an aluminium bezel insert is it's not as hard and scratch resistant as a ceramic bezel insert. I prefer to see a Coke bezel like this with a black and red portion to be made from ceramic, because ceramic is harder. But subjectively, some collectors might like this because the anodized red portion of it does give it a vintage aesthetic, and it does suit the Coke bezel. So I personally would prefer to see ceramic because it's harder and more scratch resistant, but aesthetically the aluminium metallic tone of the anodized red and black does look good for a Coke bezel. The Arabic numerals are high definition, the font is good, it's crisp and sharp, it's not too thick, and the dots are engraved very well into the aluminium bezel insert. Now, this is fully loomed, and this is a pleasant surprise because I expected them to use the cost-cutting measure of just inlaying the triangle, the dots, and also the Arabic numerals for the 24 hours in just white paints, but they're actually inlaid with C3 Superluminova as per the snowflake indices and the arrow handset. And they've done a very good job of inlaying the engraving to the anodized aluminium bezel inserts, because we've got 5 to 6 layers of C3 and it's nice and sharp and crisp. The font is good, the legibility is good. Also, the white tone of it matches the white tone of the snowflake indices and the handset. It doesn't look cream or white. I think the perfect colour tone match is white on the bezel, white on the dial, white on the handset. So it's good quality C3 on the aluminium bezel insert. The scalloped bezel is made from titanium to match the case back and the bracelet. It's got a matte finish to it rather than being mirror polished, and a large mirror polished chamfer to the top edge which deletes the sharp tips of the scalloped teeth. So it feels grippy and tactile without being sharp. It's easy to get good purchase with your index finger and thumb. So let's test the bezel execution. Now, this is an unexpected pleasant surprise. Boderrry deserve credit here because this does not use 120 click unidirectional bezel as per dive pieces, and often low-tier Chinese brands with GMT pieces, they just use the same 120 click unidirectional bezels they use on their dive piece versions. But this uses a correct bidirectional 24 click GMT bezel. So it rotates both clockwise and anti-clockwise, and it clicks. It has 24 heavy clicks. So rather than using a click spring as per a 120 click unidirectional bezel on a dive piece, this uses ball bearings which are sprung loaded, and the ball bearings engage in grooves, 24 grooves on the underside of the GMT bezel. Very unusual to see this at this price point. Even more expensive mid-tier pieces with GMT complications, they often only have 120 click unidirectional bezels because it's a production cost cutting measure. They can use the same bezel and case as used on their dive pieces on their GMT pieces. But Boderrry have created this 24 click bidirectional bezel. Now it feels even all the way through the 360 degrees, both clockwise and anti-clockwise. It doesn't get tighter or looser. In terms of resistance, it has a medium resistance to it. Doesn't feel too heavy, doesn't feel too light. Feels very similar to a bezel on a Seiko 5KX or a San Martin SN 017G, which you'll all be familiar with. It's got that nice medium firm resistance. No lateral side-to-side play whatsoever. And I like the even feeling of it, the fact this doesn't get tighter or looser through the 360 degrees. The 24 clicks are nice and solid. They're not loud and audible as per stainless steel bezel. That's a characteristic of titanium bezels. They are lighter and therefore they don't deaden the sound as much, because titanium bezels are not as dense as 316L grade stainless steel bezels. So they don't dull down the sound of the clicks, and you can hear them. They feel lighter. But in terms of resistance, feels nice and heavy. Good solid ratcheting mechanism with the ball bearings which are sprung loaded. Feels nice and smooth. I like the feeling of these stainless steel ball bearings engaging with the underside of the grooves, the 24 grooves in the titanium bezel. Now the alignment is perfect. Because it's bidirectional, we don't need to check for backplay. There is no backplay clockwise and anti-clockwise. Each of the clicks does feel solid. It registers correctly on each of the 24 hours. Feels good. So no lateral side-to-side play. We don't need to check for back play. I'll just check the alignment. So one click to the right and then back, bang on the 60-minute tick and the 12 o'clock index. We'll check one click to the left and then back again, bang on the centres. So the fully loomed triangle on the aluminium bezel insert perfectly aligns with the 60-minute tick on the chapter ring and the 12 o'clock triangle index on the dial. Boderrry deserve credit here because this is a very well executed 24-click bidirectional GMT bezel. No lateral side-to-side play, even through the 360 degrees, both clockwise and anti-clockwise, and the clicks feel nice and solid. The alignment is bang on. It is a very good 24-click bezel. So, with regards to the crown, it's solid titanium. Coin edge finished, nice large chamfer which deletes the sharp tips to the coin edge teeth, and it's signed with an embossed Boderrry emblem to a good standard, mirror polished cap to it. Let's test the screw down crown execution. The screw down crown provides an effective hermetic seal to 200 meters, which is strong specification. Silky smooth. Perfect interface between the internal thread of the titanium crown and the external thread of the titanium crown tube. There are two rubber O-ring gaskets, one inside the crown and a second rubber O-ring seal inside the crown tube. So the two rubber O-ring gaskets provide an effective hermetic seal to 200 meters. They deserve credit here because titanium is a harder material to machine and therefore it's harder to get smooth threading on it as per 316L grade stainless steel, which is easier to machine. But this is silky smooth. Minimal number of turns required to unscrew it. So when it's fully unscrewed, we're now in the manual wind position, and one can manually wind the Seiko caliber NH34A to its maximum 41-hour power reserve. No discernible difference between the 34A and the 35A, which it's based upon. They feel exactly the same to manually wind. Feels nice and smooth, medium resistance, and one can feel the tension in the mainspring gradually building up to its maximum 41 hours. I like the smoothness of it. Feels reliable and robust. An absolute pleasure to manually wind. The proportion of the titanium coin edge crown is correct. You can get good purchase with your index finger and thumb, even though it's recessed in between the crown guards at 4 o'clock as per a Seiko 5KX or SKX 007 case. This case shape does look very similar to an SKX, and the crown guards also similar proportion to it. So the crown is correctly proportioned, easy to get good purchase on it, feels good to manually wind. Pulling it out to the first click position is the quick set date complication and also the GMT hour hand, which is also quick set. So when you rotate the crown anti-clockwise, we're now in the quick set date complication position. You can see the days of the month click over with a nice positive click. Nice solid heavy indexing. It's a characteristic I really like about the NH35A and 34A respectively. Solid indexing. The alignment of the single black Arabic numerals on the date is correct. They're not too far to the left or right or too high or too low in the date window. And the same applies to the doubles. Nice sharp fine font. Not too thick or blurry, and the printing is good quality, legibility is good, alignment is correct, and I like the heavy clicking mechanism. You can feel the quick set complication clicking over. It feels very good. Now, in the same date setting position, if you rotate the crown clockwise, you can advance the GMT hour hand, and it clicks around each of the 24 hours with nice positive heavy clicks. So anti-clockwise will advance the date, and clockwise advances the red contrasting GMT hour hand. Nice solid clicks, and it feels good. I like the positive indexing, and it's very good to be able to independently set the GMT hour hand to the bezel without disturbing the 12-hour hands and it feels very good, works very well. Pulling it out to second click position hacks the movement. If you look at the contrasting white snowflake second hand, you can see it's now stopped dead, so it's possible to set the time precisely to the second with the Seiko Caliber NH34A automatic. So we're now in the time setting position. The pencil white minute hand is correctly proportioned. I want to give credit to Boderrry here because often low-tier Chinese brands have a tendency to undersize the handsets. For example, the minute hand will be too short, but this one, the pencil tip of the minute hand extends all the way to the white minute ticks on the chapter ring, so it's the correct length and proportion. The triangle arrowhead's hour hand is also correctly proportioned, the legibility is good, and the contrasting red GMT hand has a large triangle, and that's also long enough to reach the snowflake indices and the minute ticks on the chapter ring. So it feels smooth both clockwise and anti-clockwise when you cycle through the 12 hours, and it feels exactly the same as the NH35A. The architecture of the 34A and the 35A are the same. The only difference is the 34A has a GMT complication driven off the date complication, but the architecture of both movements is the same, therefore they feel the same. Meshing of the gearing is good, minimal back play, clockwise and anti-clockwise. There's an almost immediate response. When you rotate the titanium coin edge crown, the minute hand immediately responds with slight back play, feels good. Pushing it back in, it's got a nice positive click and that restarts the movement. You can see the snowflake second hand begins to sweep around the dial once again at the characteristic 3 Hz sweep. Now, subjectively, the negative of the NH34A is it has a stutter or judder to the second hand. It doesn't sweep as smoothly as a 4 Hz movement running at 28,800 vibrations per hour, but that's a characteristic of the NH35A and 34A respectively, one just has to live with. I prefer the smoother sweep of a 4 Hz movement, but this runs at 3 Hz and therefore the snowflake second hand stutters or judders, but that's just the way it is. Let's test screwing it back down. Instant thread pickup, there's a perfect interface between the titanium coin edge crown and the external thread of the titanium crown tube. So Boderrry deserve credit here because build quality, quality control, machining and tolerances are 10 out of 10. This is a silky smooth titanium crown and the pickup of the threads is instant. Perfect pickup between the internal thread of the titanium crown meshing with the external thread of the titanium crown tube. Titanium is harder to machine. They've deserve credit because it's harder to get the thread smooth as per 316L grade stainless steel, but they've done it and it feels silky smooth. This is sublime screw down crown execution. I really like it. Right, so let's look at the bracelet and clasp in detail. So Jubilee style bracelet, and I think they've made the incorrect decision. They've made a mistake of 20 to 18, but this is subjective. I think 20 to 16, which is the industry standard, will look better, but let's check the play. So the end links articulate freely. They don't feel stiff or kink. That's the positive. However, the negative is lateral, side to side, up and down, longitudinal play. Play in every single direction. The problem is the end links are loose. Therefore, the bracelet rattles at the end links. Let's check the other side for continuity. Again, articulates freely. That's the positive. Doesn't feel stiff or kink, so that's good. But we have excess longitudinal, lateral, side to side, and up and down play. Play in every single direction, and it rattles. And we're looking at significant play. Now, one can be magnanimous about some kind of QC issues and build quality, quality control, and tolerances below the €100 price point in the low tier. One has to be realistic and expect some cost-cutting measures, but this is €152. Too much play. It rattles, so it's sloppy. Now, on a positive note, the titanium Jubilee style bracelet is finished very well. No sharp edges to the top edge or the lower edge of the flank, so it doesn't feel sharp, doesn't scratch the wrist, doesn't pull arm hairs, articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink. So the articulation is good. Let's check the other side for continuity. Again, doesn't have a sharp edge on the top edge or the lower edge of the flanks, so it's been deburred and chamfered very well, doesn't pull arm hairs. The Jubilee style links articulate freely. They don't feel stiff or kink, so that's good. The negative is it's sloppy, and we're looking at significant play here in every single one of the Jubilee style links. The cumulative effect of this play across the length of the bracelet is it rattles. It's a sloppy Jubilee style bracelet. Same applies both on the 6 o'clock and the 12 o'clock side. it rattles. This is a very sloppy bracelet. On a positive note, I'm pleased to see they've used screw pins rather than push pins as a cost-cutting measure, and as you can see, the screw pins are correctly proportioned. 1.2mm screw pins are the correct size for these Jubilee style links. So I'm pleased they didn't use the cost-cutting measure of push pins, because that would exacerbate the problem and make it even more loose. But with screw pins, it ought to be possible to tighten up the tolerances. By tightening up the screw pins, it should reduce the play. Lateral, longitudinal, side to side and up and down play. This is disappointing because the finishing is good. The brushed satin finishing to the flanks is very good. It has a beautiful luster to the titanium, and they deserve credit because titanium is harder to machine and polish than 316L grade stainless steel. But the mirror polishing to the centre links of the Jubilee style bracelet is very good. The mirror polishing is flawless. The brushed satin finishing to the outer links has a beautiful satin finish to it, and that complements the brushed satin finishing to the flanks. So visually it does look very good. And it does feel good because it feels very loose, it doesn't feel stiff or kink, it articulates well, doesn't have sharp edges, doesn't pull arm hairs, but it rattles. So they really need to tighten up the tolerances of the end links and tighten up the tolerances of each of the links in the Jubilee style bracelet. So let's look at the clasp. So clasp is made from 316L grade stainless steel, not titanium, which is acceptable because it is expensive to machine clasps in titanium and it's difficult to get the finishing correct, and this is a low tier piece costing €152. One has to be realistic and expect some cost cutting. So a 316L grade stainless steel clasp on a titanium bracelet is acceptable at this price point. So it's well finished, no sharp edges to it, doesn't have sharp corners, doesn't have sharp undercuts to the flanks. The two button push triggers are correctly proportioned, nice spring loaded action, opens freely. So the solid milled internals are not made from titanium, they're made from stainless steel, which is 316L grade stainless steel. Brushed satin finishing to the top side, underside and flanks is done to a good standard, beautiful luster, but unfortunately they've engraved stainless steel / titanium on the right hand portion upside down. Now I'll clarify why it's upside down. Usually collectors will remove a piece from the wrist this way up, and then they'll turn the watch round this way, like so, press the two button push triggers and open the clasp from left to right. So this is the right way up, as you can see. Now if you look at the engraving, just bear with me, I'll get the camera to focus on it. They've engraved stainless steel / titanium with high definition engraving to a very good standard, but it's upside down. They need to invert it and engrave it the other way up on the right hand portion. For the majority of collectors that wear a piece on the left wrist, this is upside down. Now let's check the hinge pins. Left hand hinge pin articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, so that's the positive. Unfortunately, we've got significant lateral, side to side, up and down, longitudinal play in every single direction, and it's significant play. Now again, one can be magnanimous about this kind of play with a low tier piece below €100, but not at €152. The tolerances need to be tightened up. So it rattles, it's sloppy. Let's check the centre hinge pin. Again, articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, so that's the positive. But the negative is, now just bear with me, I'll get the camera to focus on it. This has significant side to side play. It's absolutely dreadful. Now just look closer, I'll get the camera to focus on it because I want you to see this negative. It has 1mm of lateral side to side play, which is absolutely dreadful. You can see it there. I'll just move it slowly and you'll be able to see with the camera focusing on it. That's 1mm of lateral side to side play. Now this isn't a below €100 price point piece in the low tier. We're looking at €152. Sloppy tolerances. Unfortunately that's not the only problem. Lateral, side to side, up and down, longitudinal play. Very easy to correct because they've simply drilled the holes too large and the pin is undersized. And what you've got here is an undersized stainless steel pin in an oversized hole, and it's sloppy. My concern with this is long-term durability. How long is it going to be before the excess shear load on this undersized pin in an oversized hole causes it to shear, or simply the riveted ends wear off in the elongated holes and the pin drops out? So my concern is, how long is it going to be before this fails? Because you can see 1mm of side to side play. Absolutely disgraceful. Let's check the right hand hinge pin. Articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink, but again, sloppy. Lateral, side to side, up and down, longitudinal play. Just bear with me, I'll get the camera to focus. Just look at the amount of play. Over 1mm of lateral, side to side play, up and down play, longitudinal play. Dreadful. One can be magnanimous about this kind of cost cutting below €100, not at 152. Again, the cumulative effect of this is left hand, centre, right hand hinge pin all have excessive play, and the cumulative effect is the solid milled stainless steel clasp rattles. And my concern is long-term durability. On a positive note, there's no sharp edge to the top edge or the lower edge of the flanks on the left hand and the right hand portion. They've deburred and chamfered it very well. The centre section doesn't have sharp corners, so the finishing is good. Beautiful lustre to the brush satin finishing to the top side, underside and flanks, and it's been deburred and chamfered to a good standard. The finishing is good. It's just the build quality, quality control and tolerances are poor of the hinge pins. They just need to tighten up the tolerances, make the holes smaller, make the pins larger, make it a friction interference fit on the left, centre and right hand hinge pins. On a positive note, it does snap shut with a nice positive click, and the 2 button push triggers are heavily sprung loaded, so it does feel reliable, closes well and opens freely. Snap shut with a good positive click. The negative of this clasp is there is no micro adjustment mechanism and the clasp does not have any holes in the flanks. I'd like to see Boderrry upgrade this clasp to a longer clasp with 4 or 5 micro adjustment holes in the flanks, or alternatively a ratcheting mechanism. It does feel low profile enough to wrap around the wrist, although the inner portion is quite thick as you can see, and the problem is that means that the Jubilee style links can't sit close to the wrist because they've got this thick milled inner section. They could reduce the thickness of it. It's very thick as you can see, and it means that the Jubilee bracelet doesn't sit snug to the wrist. We've got this large gap which I'll show you in the wrist shot. They really need to change this short clasp. The other thing they could do is add some half links, one on the 6 o'clock side, one on the 12 o'clock side of the clasp, because often adding or subtracting one full Jubilee style link from a Jubilee style bracelet doesn't give the correct fit. The bracelet is either too tight or too loose. With half links you can refine the fit, get the perfect fit in the absence of a micro adjustment clasp, alternatively a clasp with a ratcheting mechanism or 5 holes in the flanks. So they really need to add a micro adjustment clasp or half links, because full links in the bracelet means that it's the luck of the draw whether you get the perfect fit or not. So let's look at the case back. Solid titanium case back. We have an embossed star which is very good, and it's mirror polished to a good standard, and it's got a matte bead blasted background to it. Nice 3D effect to it. Doesn't feel sharp or rough against the wrist, so it feels comfortable, and they've done a very good job of engraving the reference number and the specification around the circumference. Concentric CNC lathe tool machining to it, and it's also got scalloped teeth around the circumference, and they are very well polished and deburred, so no sharp edges to the scalloping on the bezel. It's not a bubble back case back, which is good. Despite this being NH34A powered, it does need adequate clearance to clear the rotor. The embossed star, which is forged, they make this by hydraulically pressing the case back versus engraving it, and it's very good because the forging is very high definition and crisp. I like the hydraulic pressing in the forged case back as per engraving it, which would make it sharp and therefore rough against the wrist. So mirror polishing is good, finishing to the scalloping is good, and I like the large star in the centre. Does look very aesthetically pleasing. Scalloping also adds interest. Then links are a good snug fit to the head of the piece, and we've got standard stainless steel spring bars which work very well. The undercuts to the flanks are deburred and chamfered very well, and the 4 tips to the tips of the lugs are deburred and chamfered very well. So no sharp corners to the case, doesn't have sharp edges to the left or the right hand flanks. The quality of the finishing to the titanium head of the piece is excellent, and they deserve credit. No sharp edges whatsoever. So I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now, I haven't sized the bracelet, and I'm pleased to report I can easily slide an index finger beneath the bracelet and clasp at all times. That indicates this will easily fit up to an 8.5-inch wrist. So if you're a collector with a larger wrist of 8 inches plus, no concerns whatsoever. This will fit up to an 8.5-inch wrist with no difficulty. So nice wrist presence at 40mm. Visually, it looks and feels very similar to a Seiko 5KX, or alternatively a Seiko SKX 007. Similar case shape to the SKX, and with the crown guards and crown at 4 o'clock, and the profiling to the curved lugs and the flanks of the case does look similar to a Seiko SKX, but the flanks to the case are more like a Submariner style homage piece because they're flat, or alternatively a Black Bay homage, rather than having the curved profile of an SKX or 5KX case. So really it's like a mixture between a Submariner or Black Bay style case and also the crown guards of an SKX or 5KX. Scalloped bezel does look correctly proportioned, and I like the aluminium anodized bezel insert, which is fully lumed with C3. Does add interest. Nice Coke bezel, black on the top, red on the lower portion, and the Arabic numerals are clearly legible. Snowflake dial contrasts very well with a matte black dial, and the triangle arrowhead tip to the hour hand and the pencil minute hand in white contrasts very well. GMT hour hand in red also contrasts. AR coating works well. Now, the thing I like about this piece is the lack of heft. If this were made from 316L grade stainless steel, in 40mm with a 20 to 18 Jubilee style bracelet, I would expect this to be circa 150 grams with all the links in the bracelet. But it's not. It's only 113, and that's the benefit of the bezel, case and case back, as well as the bracelet. It's being made from titanium. The clasp is stainless steel, but the rest of it is all titanium. 113 is very light for a 40mm head of the piece. The thing I dislike about it is the lug to lug. It's a long case, 49.2. Boderrry have made a mistake here. They should have made it the industry standard, the sweet spot, perfect 48mm lug to lug. 48 is perfect because a 48mm lug to lug will fit you regardless of whether you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist or a 7 to 8 inch wrist respectively. 49.2 is 1.2mm above the sweet spot of 48, and therefore it's a long case. The problem with it being a long case is the overhang of the tips of the lugs. You can see the gap there. So this is only really suitable for collectors with a larger 7 to 8 inch wrist. If you have a smaller 6 to 7 inch wrist, I would rule it out because above 48 means you have overhang on the tips of the lugs. So it's not suitable for a 6 to 7. If you have a larger wrist of 7 to 8 inches, yes, it will suffice. 40mm by 49.2 is okay. On a positive note, it's not too thick. It doesn't have a bubble back case back, which is good because the flanks to the case have a nice snug gap, as you can see. It doesn't have a large gap beneath the flanks. It's a low profile piece. This is the benefit of using a flat sapphire crystal versus a top hat boxed style crystal or double dome sapphire crystal. The 2mm thick flat crystal doesn't add significant thickness to the head of the piece, and this is only 13.1. So you'll know from my previous reviews, 13mm is the sweet spot to easily slip underneath a shirt cuff if you wear business shirts. So at 13.1 it's just a fraction above the sweet spot, only 0.1mm slightly too thick. So it's acceptable. 13.1, this will easily slip underneath a shirt cuff, therefore it is practical for a daily wear piece. Comfort level is good because of the lack of heft. It's only 113 grams, which is good. It's just a shame they made the mistake of a 20 to 18 taper. You can see the bracelet is too straight and parallel. It looks too much meat on the bracelet. For a 40mm, 20 to 16 is perfection personified. 20 to 18, which is what we're looking at here, looks too thick. There's too much meat on the bracelet. The problem with it is when it gets down to the clasp looks too wide and thick, and it's short as well. This would look so much better with a 16mm taper and a 16mm slender clasp. So the clasp also looks too bulky. This is what I was referring to. The problem with the inner portion of it being thick, this solid milled internal section being too thick, as you can see, there's a lot of meat on it. When you close it, you've got this gap, and that means the end of the underside of the Jubilee bracelet, it can never sit snug against the wrist. It can't wrap around it. Look at the gap. And it's notable, and especially if you have a smaller wrist. For example, if you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist, you're going to notice the internals, the solid milled portion of the stainless steel clasp, it creates this gap beneath the Jubilee bracelet. And it's a real shame because the Jubilee bracelet articulates freely. It doesn't feel stiff or kink, and it could sit snug to the wrist, but it doesn't. You constantly have this large gap. Even on my large 8 inch wrist, look at the gap. And when you're wearing it, it's notable. It detracts from the feel-good factor and the comfort level because the clasp is small, but the problem is the internals. They've made it too thick. So you constantly get this gap underneath. The bracelet can never sit snug to the wrist, as you can see. And it just sits at an awkward angle, as you can see, it tilts. They really need to refine this. They could delete the internals. For example, if they made this portion, the left and the right hand portion, thinner, it's far too thick. If they reduced it by 1mm, they could make it flatter. They could also make it more curved to wrap around the wrist. It's too flat. And then it would be lower profile by 1mm, it would curve around the wrist, and therefore it would delete this gap you get underneath it. They really need to add a micro adjustment clasp or a longer clasp with 5 micro adjustment holes drilled in the flanks. That would delete this problem. Also, if they updated the bracelet with a 20-16 taper, it would reduce the meat of it. So it's a lightweight piece at 113 grams, but unfortunately too much meat on the bracelet, and therefore it doesn't feel balanced. The head of the piece feels light, bracelet feels like too much meat, and then we've got this lightweight clasp which has too much thickness on the internals to fit correctly. So this clasp really needs to be deleted and updated, and 20-16 on the taper. But head of the piece is aesthetically pleasing, does give wrist presence at 40, looks very similar to a 5KX or an SKX007 on wrist. So unfortunately, feel good factor and comfort level are disappointing. It is worth purchasing if you wear it on a strap, because that will solve the problem of the bracelet. The head of the piece is good, does have nice wrist presence, but it is slightly long at 49.2. So let's do a Lume test, and we'll see how the Lume performs when it's charged up to the absolute maximum. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to the absolute peak. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, it has not disappointed. So, good colour tone match in daylight. The white tone of the C3 in daylight matches on the anodised aluminium bezel insert, the dial, and also the handset. But however, initially it looks good. The exciter appears to glow brightly in green, but now it's beginning to fade quickly. So initially I said it has not disappointed, because I thought we're going to be looking at 5 to 6 layers and the exciter was going to perform with potency, but unfortunately it's not. This is a clear cost-cutting measure. Now, one can be magnanimous about cost-cutting measures. One has to be realistic. This is a titanium piece powered by an NH34A at €152, so one has to expect some cost-cutting measures in order to make it viable to retail at the price point of €152 within the mid-tier. So often low-tier Chinese brands use the cost-cutting measure of applying 2 to 3 layers or 3 to 4 layers of C3 or BGW9 Superlume Nova to cut production costs per piece in order to maximise profit margin per piece, thus make it viable to retail at low price points. But cost-cutting measure too far. We're not even looking at 3 to 4 layers of BGW9 here. This is 2 to 3. And it's 2 to 3 on the aluminium bezel insert, 2 to 3 on the snowflake printed indices, 2 to 3 on the handset. All 3 places. Now the positive is there was a good colour tone match of green on the bezel, the dial and the hand. So they got the colour tone match correct. But it's now immediately fading to nothing, so the potency of the exciter in the C3 is negligible performance. This is very disappointing. It's a cost-cutting measure too far. Collectors would happily pay an additional $5 or €5 per piece to have 5 to 6 layers, and that's the production cost-cutting we're talking about. $5 per piece or €5 per piece. It is negligible. Boderrry really have made a production cost-cutting measure too far here with 2 to 3 layers. It's not even 3 to 4. This is dreadful. €152, one expects 5 to 6 layers. Other low-tier Chinese brands are capable of doing it. I'll give you an example. The Steel Dive SD1953, which is a Submariner Data Marge you'll all be familiar with, that is only €80 in the low tier, but it has 5 to 6 layers on a fully loomed ceramic bezel insert, 5 to 6 layers on the indices, 5 to 6 layers on the Mercedes hands at €80. This is €152. But we're looking at 2 to 3. So if Steel Dive can do it on the SD1953 at €80 price point and retail it and make it viable, Boderrry should also be able to do it at €152. It's the main negative of this piece, and I think it's really disappointing to have 2 to 3 layers of C3. So I really want to see them upgrade it with a V2 and 5 to 6 layers on the aluminium bezel insert, snowflake printed indices, and the dial and the hands as well. Right, so let's discuss the movement use, because it's one of my favourite aspects of the piece. So you'll all be familiar with the Seiko NH34A automatic. The architecture of the NH34A is the same as the NH35A respectively. The only difference is they add a GMT complication to the cannon pinion. So the GMT hour hand is driven off the date complication. As I've demonstrated in the date setting position, when you rotate the crown anti-clockwise, it advances the date complication. When you rotate the crown clockwise, it advances the GMT hour hand. So works very well. The NH35A has been in service since 2011, so at this stage in 2025 it's a reliable, well-proven workhorse movement. The NH34A, which it's based upon, has been in service since 2022. So at this stage it's had 3 years of service. No reliability issues reported whatsoever. The build quality, quality control, materials and tolerances are all excellent. So architecture is the same. Seiko make the NH34A in 2 plants in Malaysia and Japan. Boderrry are using the Malaysian version. There's no difference in the quality control, build quality or accuracy of the Malaysian made and the Japanese made versions respectively. Has 24 joules. It runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 3 Hz. Has hand winding and hacking, which works well, and a quick set date complication, which, as I've demonstrated, works correctly. Quick set GMT hour hand also works correctly. 41-hour power reserve is perfectly acceptable. The stated accuracy of the NH34A is -20 to +40 seconds per day, so rather wide accuracy range. However, I'm pleased to report that Boderrry are doing a good job of regulating the NH34As they're using. This one is running consistently at +8 seconds per day. +8 is well within the stated -20 to +40. It's not very impressive. It is possible to regulate an NH34A better in 5 positions to ±5 seconds per day, but +8 is acceptable. It is okay. So no negatives to it whatsoever. I like the NH34A and it is the correct choice in the low tier at this price point of €152. Hacking works well, hand winding works well, and also the GMT hour hand quick set works well. So I like everything about it. The only negative subjectively is the stutter or judder of the 3 Hz sweep of the Snowflake second hand, but this is subjective. For the majority of collectors it's not detrimental. So last I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch should meet 2 criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So low tier piece, the price point is $169, which is €152. I'm going to declare it okay quality and okay value at €152. Now, I can't say good or excellent quality or good and excellent value at €152 because there are 2 main negatives. One negative is the poor performance of the C3 Superluminova, which is only 2 to 3 layers, as I demonstrated in the Lume test. The other negative is the bracelet. It's sloppy and rattles. And we've also got play in the end links, which is unacceptable. And also the clasp. We have excessive play in all 3 hinge pins, and most notably the centre. 1mm of lateral side-side play, which is dreadful. So, too many QC issues on the bracelet and the clasp to make this good or excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. They need to tighten up the tolerances. There's no excuse for it at €152. If they produced a V2 of this with 5 to 6 layers of C3 on the bezel, the dial and the hands, and they tightened up the tolerances in the end links, the bracelet and also the hinge pins, I would upgrade this to excellent quality and excellent value. They also need to update the clasp to a micro adjustment clasp at this price point. It is disappointing to have no half links and no micro adjustment. So too many cost cutting measures. But one has to say it's okay quality and okay value because of the specification. It is made from titanium, which is expensive, more expensive than 316L grade stainless steel and more expensive to produce. It's harder to machine and finish. Also, it's NH34A powered, which is a good movement. So titanium plus NH34A means it's okay quality and okay value. And also it has a 24-click bidirectional bezel, which is good. So I'm going to recommend it to you for consideration, but bear in mind the QC issues of the bracelet and clasp and also the poor performance of the Superluminova. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Boderrry Admiral GMT reference A12T-01. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you for watching.